The hum of the hyperdrive faded as the Ares broke free from the vastness of deep space and entered orbit around Mars. Captain Elena Carter leaned against the cold window of the bridge, her eyes scanning the barren red surface below. It had been years since she'd set foot on Earth's first interplanetary colony, but this trip felt different. This mission wasn't about exploration. It was about survival. The delegation from the Collective, a coalition of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy, had arrived 3 days ago. Their promise was simple: to protect humanity from any threats that might arise in the vast unknowns of space. At first, Elena had been skeptical. Yet, as the hours passed, the alien ships, each a towering testament to their power, reminded her that no matter how much she mistrusted their intentions, the reality of their strength couldn't be denied. Elena's thoughts were interrupted by the chirp of her communicator. "Captain Carter!" The voice of Major Ben Ortiz crackled through the speaker. "We've just entered the chamber. The Collective's representatives are waiting." "Understood," Elena replied, her voice steady. She turned from the window and walked briskly toward the conference room. The air was thick with tension, but it wasn't just the weight of the situation that made her nervous, it was the unknown. The sleek, metallic doors slid open, revealing the sprawling chamber where representatives from Earth's leaders and the Collective were seated. The room was suffused with a strange, bluish glow from the alien technology that surrounded them, creating an almost otherworldly atmosphere. At the far end of the room stood Zlar Thursday, the commander of the Collective's military forces. His presence was imposing, even without the physical stature of his species. His eyes, black, reflective, and impassive, watched her as she entered. "Elena Carter," Zlar Thursday greeted, his voice smooth, almost melodic, but carrying an undertone of authority. "I trust your journey was comfortable." "Comfortable enough," Elena replied, taking her seat at the table. Her gaze swept over the others present, human diplomats, military officials, and the alien counselors who sat poised, waiting for the formalities to begin. Zlar Thursday stood, extending one long arm in a gesture that was both regal and calculated. "Humanity stands on the precipice of a new age," he began. "For centuries you've looked to the stars in awe, but you have yet to understand the dangers that lie within them. The Collective is here to offer you the protection you need. Together, we will ensure that Earth remains safe from the threats that lurk beyond your understanding." The room fell silent. Elena's heart beat faster, but she kept her expression neutral. "And what threats are those?" she asked, her voice sharp. "We've made our way through space, fought off alien invaders, and survived wars on our own. What exactly is out there that we need protection from?" Zlar Thursday's lips twitched, a subtle smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You cannot fathom the vastness of the dangers beyond your world, Captain Carter. The Wraith, the Xylan, the Void Walkers, civilizations that have existed for millennia and destroyed everything in their path. You are no different than the civilizations that have fallen before you. But you are fortunate. We, the Collective, can offer you what your people lack, the power to survive." Elena's eyes narrowed. The words were heavy, laden with a history she couldn't see, but felt in the very air around them. She'd heard whispers of these names, but they were little more than legends. The Wraith. The Void Walkers. No concrete evidence, just stories passed down by those who survived, or didn't. "What are you asking in return?" Elena's voice was cold, challenging. Zlar Thursday's gaze didn't waver. "A small price, Captain. You will accept our protection and, in turn, allow us to assist in guiding your military strategies. Together, we will build a defense system unlike anything you've ever seen. Your people will no longer be vulnerable. You will thrive." Elena clenched her fists under the table. The implications of his words were clear. The Collective's protection wasn't a gift, it was a transaction. And while it sounded like salvation, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's independence was being sold away piece by piece. "I'll be honest, Zlar Thursday," she said, her voice steady. "I've seen a lot of promises made in my time. Some of them delivered. Most of them didn't. So, forgive me if I'm a bit skeptical about an offer that sounds too good to be true." The alien commander's eyes flickered, a hint of irritation beneath his calm demeanor. Skepticism is natural. But ask yourself, Captain, what choice do you have? Your world is small. The universe is vast. There are forces out there you cannot even begin to comprehend. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of survival. Elena hesitated for a moment. The room was heavy with the weight of his words. But then, something within her stirred, a question that had been gnawing at the back of her mind since the collective first arrived. From who exactly are you defending us? She asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Zlar Thursday's expression hardened, just for a moment. The air grew still, and for the briefest of seconds, the hum of the room seemed to cease. The collective members exchanged glances, a ripple of unease passing through them. But Zlar Thursday recovered quickly, his smooth voice cutting through the tension. Captain, I assure you, the enemies we face are beyond your understanding. You will know them when the time comes. His smile was thin, almost predatory. But until then, rest assured, we are here to protect you. The room was silent again. Elena's mind raced. What were they hiding? Why had Zlar Thursday been so evasive? There was something deeper here, something he wasn't saying. But the answers remained just out of reach, buried beneath layers of diplomacy and cryptic assurances. We'll need time to deliberate, Elena said, her voice firm. But I will not be swayed by vague promises. We need concrete answers. Zlar Thursday inclined his head slightly, an expression that could have been respect, or a concession. Of course, Captain. Take all the time you need. But remember, time is a luxury your people no longer have. As the meeting came to an end, Elena's thoughts churned. The collective's offer seemed too perfect, too convenient. And that was precisely what made her uneasy. The stakes were higher than she could have imagined, and the truth was more elusive than ever. She stood, her gaze fixed on the stars visible through the observation window. A part of her wanted to believe that the aliens truly had humanity's best interests at heart, but the question that haunted her remained, what exactly are they protecting us from? And who or what were the collective truly afraid of? The Ares engines hummed softly as it drifted silently through the vast expanse of Mars' orbit. Captain Elena Carter sat alone in the ship's briefing room, a cup of cold coffee untouched in front of her. Her eyes, however, were glued to the holoscreen, her mind still caught in the words spoken by Zlar Thursday just hours ago. The question she'd asked, from who exactly are you defending us? Had revealed far more than she had expected. Yet, the answer had remained maddeningly vague. Elena knew that answers weren't going to come easily. And so, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Captain! A voice broke through the silence. Major Ben Ortiz appeared in the doorway, his face a mixture of concern and determination. You've been in here for hours. We need to discuss the next steps. The higher-ups are already pushing for a decision. The collective's representatives are waiting for word on whether we'll join them. I'm aware, Elena said, looking up from her terminal. Her tone was calm, but Ben could hear the underlying tension in her voice. But we're not making a decision based on nothing, Ben. I'm not willing to just accept their offer. Not until we know more. Ben nodded, stepping fully into the room and sitting across from her. I get it. The whole thing smells fishy. But how do we get the truth? They're not exactly forthcoming with details. Elena's fingers tapped lightly against the table, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the viewport. We dig. We find out what they're hiding. I don't care if I have to go behind their backs. Ben raised an eyebrow. You're thinking of going rogue? I'm thinking of doing what's necessary, Elena replied. I want to know who or what the collective is really afraid of. Back on Mars, Elena enlisted the help of Dr. Ria Daniels, a brilliant scientist who had spent years studying alien technology. Ria was the kind of person who was never satisfied with surface-level answers. She was driven by curiosity and the need to understand the unknown. Ria, I need you to dig into the collective's history. Find out everything you can about their past interactions with other civilizations, Elena instructed as they sat in the base's secure lab, surrounded by terminals and holographic data streams. There has to be something we're missing. Something they're not telling us. Ria's fingers flew over the keys as she began to pull up data on the collective. Ancient records, fragmented transmissions from long-lost worlds, accounts of civilizations that had fallen under the collective's influence. There was a wealth of information, but it was scattered and difficult to piece together. After an hour of intense searching, Ria looked up, her face pale. Elena, you need to see this. On the screen, a series of reports appeared, detailed records of the collective's interventions with various planets. Most of them were wiped clean, marked as classified, but a few fragments remained. The most disturbing of them all was the mention of the Wraith. Elena leaned in, her pulse quickening. Wraith? She repeated. What's that? Ria tapped a few more keys, pulling up a report marked with a warning, highly classified, access denied. The Wraith are an ancient race of invaders, Elena. A species so powerful, they've wiped out entire star systems. The collective fought them before, but the records are sparse. They've been trying to keep the details of their existence buried. Why? Elena asked, her mind racing. Why would they try to hide something like that? Are they still a threat? Ria's fingers hovered over the keys, clearly struggling to answer. I don't know. But this. She clicked on a section of the data that revealed more names, more alien species who had disappeared after coming into contact with the Wraith. It looks like the collective might be preparing for war, and they don't want humanity to know the full extent of the danger. Elena stood up, her gaze intense. We need more. This can't be the whole story. Back in the heart of the colony, Elena met with Major Ben Ortiz, the only person she trusted implicitly with her suspicions. I'm not waiting for the collective's permission, she said, her voice hard with resolve. We're going to investigate this storm's law Thursday mentioned. If the Wraith are out there, we need to know now, before it's too late. Ben looked skeptical but nodded. I'll have a crew ready within the hour. But if the collective catches wind of this, they already know I'm not exactly buying their sales pitch. Elena interrupted. But they won't stop me. If humanity is going to survive whatever is out there, it's going to have to do it without their help. In the weeks that followed, Elena and her team embarked on a covert mission, one that would take them beyond Mars and deep into the unknown. The Ares was modified with stealth technology, designed to evade the collective's sensors, and the crew was briefed on the risks. This wasn't just a mission to gather intelligence. It was a gamble. As they neared the coordinates of the cosmic storm, Elena stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling vortex of matter and energy ahead. The storm had always been a theoretical phenomenon, something spoken of in hushed tones by scientists and astronomers. But the collective had insisted it was real, and that its power could devastate entire civilizations. We're in range, Captain, Ben called out, his voice laced with tension. Should we proceed? Elena's grip tightened on the edge of the console. She was ready, but doubts lingered like a shadow in the back of her mind. What if they were walking into something far worse than they had imagined? What if the collective was right? But she pushed those thoughts aside. She'd already made her decision. Engage the cloaking systems, Elena ordered. We go in quietly. The Ares shuddered slightly as the ship crossed the event horizon of the storm. Inside, the ship's systems flickered, struggling against the energy surges. Elena's stomach lurched as the ship veered through the turbulent space. And then, just as they reached the center, the sensors detected something. Captain, you need to see this, Ria called, her voice sharp. On the screen, an enormous fleet of ships appeared, hundreds of them, all hidden in the swirling chaos of the storm. These ships were unlike anything the collective had shown them, sleek and terrifying, with weapons that pulsed with dark energy. The Wraith fleet. It was real. And it was coming. Elena's heart sank as she turned to Ben. Prepare for the worst, she muttered. They had just uncovered the true threat. And it wasn't the collective who needed protection, it was humanity that would need to fight. As the chapter closed, Elena's thoughts were clear. The collective's secrets were out, and humanity was facing an enemy far darker than they could have imagined. The real battle was just beginning. The Ares shuddered as it maneuvered through the cosmic storm, the ship's sensors flashing warning after warning. The energy in the storm was unlike anything Elena had encountered before, chaotic, unpredictable, almost alive. It was as though the universe itself was protesting their intrusion. Yet, despite the disorienting environment, Elena kept her focus sharp. Ahead of them, the Wraith fleet loomed, invisible to the collective's sensors, but not to humanity's. "We're clear of the storm, Captain," Ben Ortiz reported from the bridge, his voice taut. "But the Wraith ships, they're massive." Elena didn't respond immediately. She had seen them on the scanner, hundreds of ships, their dark silhouettes taking shape against the chaos of the storm. Each one was a harbinger of destruction, their hulls reinforced with strange, alien technology. The Wraith weren't like anything humanity had faced before. They were predators, and Earth was their next meal. "What do we do now?" Ria Danielle's voice came over the comm, trembling with a mix of fear and determination. She had been the one to detect the Wraith fleet, and her quick thinking had given them this moment of clarity. "First, we get a closer look," Elena said, her voice cool despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about knowing our enemy." Ben hesitated. "You're planning to approach them?" "They'll see us, Captain. We're cloaked. If we keep our distance, they won't detect us. But we need intel, Ben. We can't just charge in without knowing what's waiting for us." The silence that followed was thick with hesitation. But Elena's determination won out. Ben nodded, and the crew braced themselves as the Ares edged closer to the fleet, weaving through the storm's chaotic energy. As they approached the Wraith ships, the scope of the fleet became undeniable. They were vast, more than Elena had anticipated. They filled the void, stretching for miles, their dark surfaces gleaming with an ominous sheen. The ship's sensors began picking up unusual readings, strange energy signatures, weapons systems that hummed with dark energy. The Wraith were preparing for something. "Elena, you need to see this," Ria called out, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena rushed to the sensor console, her eyes scanning the data Ria had pulled up. It was a map, an intricate web of movements and shifts within the Wraith fleet. There were clear patterns, but it wasn't just their tactical formations that stood out. It was the destination. The Wraith were heading toward Earth. "I knew it," Elena muttered under her breath, her heart sinking. The collective had known all along, and they had never warned humanity. They hadn't been defending Earth, they had been hiding the truth. The real enemy had been right under their noses. "Elena," Ben started, his voice tight with disbelief. "They're not just coming to invade. They're coming to wipe us out." She didn't need to answer. The fleet's movements spoke for themselves. The Wraith weren't here for peace. They were here for total annihilation. As the Ares drifted silently in the shadows of the storm, Elena turned to Ben, her expression set with grim resolve. "Prepare the ship. If we're going to stop them, we need to act fast. No waiting for backup. No waiting for the collective's help." "What are you thinking, Captain?" Ben asked, though he already knew the answer. The glint in Elena's eyes told him all he needed to know. "We need to take out their command ship," Elena replied. "That's where their fleet is being controlled from. If we can disable it, we'll throw their entire invasion into chaos. It's a suicide mission, but it's our only shot." Ben didn't flinch. He'd followed Elena into more dangerous situations than anyone else in the fleet. But this was different. The Wraith weren't just another alien threat. They were a force of nature, unstoppable and ruthless. "We do this together," Elena added, looking him in the eye. "All of us." Ben nodded, his face hardening. "Understood. Let's make them regret ever coming to our galaxy." The Ares surged forward, its engines roaring to life as they began their final approach toward the Wraith's command ship. Elena's fingers danced across the controls, her mind already calculating the trajectory, the weapons systems, and the exact timing. Every second counted. "We're within range," Ria reported, her voice tight with anticipation. "Their shields are already up." But I've hacked into their communications, briefly. I can disrupt their systems just enough to make a difference. Elena, we're gonna have to hit them hard and fast, Ben said, taking his position at the weapons console. No second chances. Elena's hands tightened around the controls. She'd known this was coming, had prepared herself for it in countless simulations and battle plans. But the reality was always different. The Wraith were no ordinary enemy. And this was no ordinary battle. Rhea, Elena said, her voice calm but commanding. Do it. Rhea worked quickly, her fingers flying across her console. A soft beep indicated success. She had successfully breached the Wraith's communication system. Now or never, Ben said. On your mark, Captain. Elena's gaze flicked toward the viewscreen, where the command ship loomed larger by the second. Her heart raced in her chest, but her voice remained steady. Fire! The Ares weapons systems roared to life, unleashing a barrage of energy pulses toward the Wraith command ship. The first volley hit its shields with a resounding impact, the energy rippling outward. The shields flickered, weakening, but the Wraith retaliated immediately, their weapons lashing out in response. Brace for impact! Elena shouted, but it was too late. The Ares rocked violently as the Wraith's counterfire struck, a massive explosion erupting from the ship's hull. The bridge lights flickered, alarms blaring. We're still in the fight! Ben shouted, gritting his teeth as he worked the controls. Shields are down to 30%. We need another shot at their core. Rhea's fingers moved with precision as she disrupted the Wraith's defensive systems just long enough for Elena to line up another strike. This time, the blast hit its mark, and the Wraith command ship staggered, its central core exposed. Elena's eyes narrowed. One more shot! Hit them hard! Ben didn't need to be told twice. He fired again, and this time, the Wraith ship exploded in a burst of fiery destruction, its remnants scattering in all directions. The remaining Wraith fleet faltered, their coordination disrupted. Without their command ship, they were chaos incarnate. But it wasn't over. The Wraith would not be so easily defeated. We've only bought ourselves time, Elena said, her voice heavy. But it's enough to rally Earth's forces. Enough to show them we can fight. We will fight. As the Ares sailed through the wreckage, Elena's gaze remained fixed on the stars ahead. Humanity had won a battle. But the war, the real war, was just beginning. And this time, it was humanity that would lead the charge. The chapter ends with the Ares moving toward the horizon of the unknown, a beacon of human resilience against the overwhelming tide of darkness. The Wraith were only the beginning. The true test of humanity's strength was still to come.